to this quarantine series of videos. Hope you're all staying safe and healthy. Now, last video we went through a lower workout. We talked about how to use the actual program template itself. In this video, we're going to be going through an upper body workout. We're going to talk about how to use this template to actually program your future training sessions to ensure that they're all effective and that you can build on the previous ones and continue to make progress throughout the duration of this quarantine. Now, really quickly, I just want to say, if you find these videos useful, please consider liking the video, maybe sharing the video, subscribing if you haven't already. All of those things really do help me keep this channel going and keep me motivated to make new videos. Anyway, without further ado, we'll get right into the workout. All right, so here we are back on our CAT program, the home training program. We've gone through our lower A, so we're gonna go on into our upper A workouts. Just like last time, we're gonna start off by setting up a daily goal. Like I said before, I'm really big on setting goals for workouts or things in general. Just really helpful for setting a mindset before you go into that activity, whatever it might be. I also want to point out that in this structure, we've put up the vertical pull and press before the horizontal. And that is intentional. For the most part, we're all going to be stronger in that horizontal plane. Think of your barbell bench press, your push-ups, etc., your bent over rows versus things like pull-ups or things like overhead press. The idea is by doing the vertical plane push and pull first, we're gonna more or less pre-exhaust ourselves to keep us in a more reasonable rep range for the horizontal plane push and pull. We don't wanna end up doing sets of 50 on push-ups if we can avoid it. Another note that I will make is if you need to, for any of these movements, you can always add in a complication like we said last time around. But for me, starting with the vertical pull, I'm gonna be going for some pull-ups. That's gonna be body weight resistance, obviously. I'm gonna go for 4 sets. And the goal, well, in this case, I didn't really have a goal set up just because this is my baseline workout to figure out how many reps I can get per 4 sets. I will say, if you get no other equipment at all during this quarantine, a pull-up bar is probably one that you should consider. They're not that expensive. You can get one like this, these over-the-door pull-ups that are non-permanent. They don't have to be drilled into your wall or drilled into your door frame. This is a great addition to any home gym or any home in general, I would say. Otherwise, you could also make do with a kind of a makeshift suspension setup like you see here to do row variations. I will say though, because your feet are going to be on the ground, that's not going to be as useful for you if you are already pretty strong. Moving on to our vertical press, I'm going to go for, in this case, actually a pike push up. The pike push-up is a great movement, or any handstand push-up variation is great if you don't have enough weight to do an overhead press with a reasonable rep range. The pike is a great starting place as a variation on the handstand push-up. For any experience level, most of you are going to be strong enough to do at least a set of, let's say, 5+ for the pike push-ups. And that's exactly why I'm demonstrating this. I will say the closer you get your feet and hands together and the higher your hips are above your hands, the more of that weight you're going to feel in your shoulders. That's the whole point. We kind of want to get your torso more or less upright or as vertical as it can be within this setup before we move on to actually elevating your feet and then eventually doing maybe like a wall supported handstand press up and then eventually a full-on handstand push up. Going on to the horizontal pull, I'm going to go for an inverted row. And I will say if you really wanted to, you could actually skip the horizontal or the vertical and just program one pull movement as a very bare minimum. But if you have the ability to program both, I would definitely go for both, especially if you are spending a lot of your day, sitting down or working at a computer, on your phone in that kind of shoulders forward posture. Doing those pulling movements is going to help you correct that, or at least have the strength to keep your shoulders a little bit further back during the day. The inverted row is one of my favorites. You can set this up almost anywhere as long as you have a table. I'll insert a screenshot or a picture of that here. As long as you have a table of some sort or even equal height counters, you can definitely set something up to do an inverted row. Elevating your feet higher will make this harder, just like in your push-ups. The higher your feet get in relation to your hands, the more of your body weight is going to be felt in your arms or in your back in this case. Going on into our horizontal press, we're going to go for some, in my case it's dumbbell elevated push-ups, but any variation is going to be okay. Most of us are going to end up doing some sort of push-up in this one just because it's a good compound lift. As long as you can find a way to make it hard enough, this can be used for a reasonable rep range. Couple things, if you elevate your feet, just like I said, elevating your feet in relation to your hands will increase the felt resistance. Also, elevating your hands off the floor can help you increase range of motion. So using blocks, using dumbbells, a stack of books, whatever you've got, it'll allow you to kind of almost quote unquote like slot your torso in between your hands to actually sink down past the point where you'd be able to if you're just doing these on the floor. Side note, the way I'm doing these here is not exactly like entirely correct. I kind of have to do it this way with my butt sinking really low to avoid hitting my face on that platform in front of me. But for most of you guys, what I'd strongly recommend is that we want to see a straight line from our shoulder to our hips to our ankles. That should all be one plane. We don't want to see our butt dipping down like I'm showing here. All right, going on to biceps. I'm actually going to do a inverted curl. If you have bands, if you have dumbbells that you can use for this, that's probably a little bit better. But I do really like this movement. If you don't have bands or anything like that, you can use a barbell, you can use some chairs, you can use a broomstick up against a doorway, whatever you can find to set this up, even like a TRX suspension setup, whatever you can do. We can do some sort of some sort of curl variation. That's going to be the best way to target your biceps specifically. When you do a bicep curl of any kind, especially this inverted curl, do your best to isolate for movement at your shoulder. We don't want, isolate for movement at your elbow. We only want that elbow bend. We don't want your elbow itself moving forward and backward, which is very tempting, but try to minimize that movement as much as you can. The shoulder isolation, I'm going to go for a leaning dumbbell side lateral. You don't have to do it this way, and of course, if you don't have dumbbells, it's going to be a little bit harder, but I want to make a point here. If you don't have dumbbells and you want to do an isolation move like this, you can just as well load up a shopping bag or a backpack with whatever stuff you've got around the house, whether that's cans of food, water bottles, literally anything can be used for improvised weight in an exercise like this where that bag or backpack is going to be well above the floor. As long as you have a decent grip on that, you're going to be okay using it. I will upload a separate video later on about the lateral raise in general. I think a lot of people struggle with this movement, but main tips here, maintain internal rotation. You want to keep that thumb side of your hand a little bit lower than the pinky side, or you can alternatively think of this as keeping the back of your elbow slightly tipped up toward the ceiling. Going on to triceps, I'm going to go for a close grip push-up here, kind of an elevated close grip push-up. Now, you could do an isolation movement if you have dumbbells, if you have bands. In my case, I chose for more of a combo, a little bit more compound movement to get some delt activation, a little bit of chest activation in there as well. But really, the choice is up to you. This one is another one that's a little bit redundant, so you don't really have to double up here, but I just wanted a little bit of extra work. If you're going to do, a close grip push-up like this, like we said before, the position of your arm in relation to your torso matters a whole lot in the push-up variation. So in this case, my elbow is tracking more or less on the same line as my torso, with my elbows super close into my body. That is going to load my shoulders and my tris a lot more than my chest. Finally, we're going to move on to rear delts. I did some band pull-aparts. When you're doing rear delts, it's really tough to isolate your rear delts away from your traps and your upper mid-back. So if you can, I recommend that you start the set with your shoulders fully retracted and you keep them there. If they stay retracted like that, it's going to be easier to just move your arm with your rear delts than it is to have your shoulder moving forward and backward with the possibility of assistance with those bigger upper back muscles. Last bit here, the finisher movement is optional. If you want to learn more about that, I would go back to the previous video where we talk about that a little bit more in detail. Same deal with the endurance. In my case, I didn't really do anything for endurance work after. I cut it off right after the band pull-aparts. So once you finish your lower A and your upper A, you should have all these numbers filled out. Well, all of them filled out, including your difficulties, but we're going to have resistance sets, goals if they applied, numbers of rep per set for each of the sets you've completed, as well as a difficulty. Now, it kind of depends where you're at in that scale. Like for me, the simplest scale you could use is going to be a 1 to 3 scale, 3 being failure, 1 being, too easy, kind of like around the warm-up difficulty range. There's also the option here to use RPE or RIR scale. If you're using RPE or RIR, you're probably more well-versed than this. You don't need to, use the 1 to 3 scale, but I'm going to use it as an example just because it is the most simple approach here. Anyway, you want to have all these filled out, and then once you go through upper A and B, you're going to go into your lower B and upper B. These B workouts, if you have enough equipment to do so, we'd really like to have some variety, so don't just repeat these workouts for the A stuff. Try to set up different stuff for the B to fill in any gaps that you had in the A workouts. And then once all this is done, that first block is all good to go, we're going to go ahead and update for what will be your block 2. Now this is where the program itself actually becomes very useful. We want to set up these workouts ahead of time to make sure that you're being effective in your training. So our first step, we're going to use upper A as an example, because I have this filled out for the most part. Our first step is going to be copying over, so we're going to copy and paste our exercise selection here. Any complications as well, for the most part, you're going to carry that over. And then for resistance, sets, goals, etc., this is what you're going to be setting up ahead of time. So kind of depends on what you did here. We're looking at our previous workout. The main points we want to look at are going to be total reps, volume, and difficulty. In this case, volume, that calculation won't work unless you have a number here, so just keep that in mind. If you're using body weight, you might want to just log in your body weight so we have a nice clean number there. Let me do that real quick. But yeah, so we'll have body weight there along with our difficulty and everything else. And then going through here, the numbers we're going to keep an eye on are going to be volume and total reps. If resistance stays the same, we would like to see total reps increase, or alternatively, you can say that volume over time should increase. So from this workout to this workout, volume number should be a little bit higher. The volume number in block 3 should be a little bit higher than that, and block 4 and 5 and so on should increase over time. The variables we can play with are going to be resistance, number of sets, and number of reps per set. So just to take you through some examples, we're going to be looking at just the pull-ups, pike push-ups, and the leaning dumbbell side lateral, since we have kind of a variety for the difficulty there. So we're going to isolate that. If we look at pull-ups first, so for 4 sets, I hit a difficulty of 3. That's about pretty much capping it out for me, pretty much failing on that last one. So when I look at this, to me, that looks like that's about as hard as it's going to get. The most reasonable adjustment to make would be the easiest adjustment, which is in this case going to be adding an additional set. So we're going to go up to 5 sets in this workout. I'm going to assume I weigh more or less the same, so 185 there. And our goal is going to be to probably exceed a corresponding number of reps. So if I'm getting roughly 10 reps per set, let's just say I want to get 50 plus reps. You can do it this way, or you can say I just want to get 10 per set, like that, and spell it right, maybe. But however you want to do that, set your goals in advance so you can go ahead and make sure that that volume number is increasing. Let's just assume I did in exactly 10%, which probably wouldn't look this nice. It wouldn't be 10, 10, 10, 10 like that. Probably be something like 14, 13, 12, etc., all the way down to the 5th set. But that volume number, 9250, of course, is much higher than 7400 in that previous session. So we did accomplish our goal of increasing work there. Going on to the pike push-ups. So again, body weight, right? That's going to stay the same. I can't make myself that much heavier. We had 3 sets at a difficulty of 2.5. So in this case, I actually think I could probably add another rep here and there. So we're going to keep the number of sets the same for now. We're going to actually just ask myself to do more reps. So if I got a total of 47, let's say in this next workout, I'm going to shoot 49 or more reps across 3 sets. And again, if I were to accomplish that goal, let's say it were, I don't know, 18, 16, and 15. That would be exactly 49 reps, again, for a tiny bit more volume here, 9,065 versus 8,695. Last one, leaning dumbbell side laterals. Those were pretty easy. So I have the option here. In my case, I have actual dumbbells. So I'm going to go up to, let's say, 25 pounds. I'm going to go down in number of sets, down to 3, to accommodate that increase in resistance. And I'm going to probably shoot for a lower rep number. I'm making a guess here. I don't actually know if there's a rep number I can hit, but I'm just going to say I'm going for 11 reps per set. So we'll say 33 plus in total for 3 sets. Maybe that ends up being 12, 11, and 10. So again, in this case, since we increased resistance, this number actually ends up being lower than the dumbbell side lateral. But as an example, if we went into your upper C, let's say, and we did dumbbell side lateral, and we did, again, 25 pounds for 4 sets, and we went, in this case, 10, 10, 10, 10. That volume number ends up being a little bit higher, all the way up at 1,000 pounds of total volume. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully those examples are useful for you. Something I want you to keep in mind is that when you are going through your training cycle, so from block 1 into block 2 into block 3 and so on, the start, your block 1 is always going to be your easiest block. Block 2, 3, etc., that's going to get a little bit harder as it ramps up. And block 4, 5, 6, etc., those are going to be a little bit harder. So we'll put up the graph here. Basically, the start of block 1 or any training cycle, sorry, should be a little bit easier. You're going to ramp up until you meet your work capacity. You're going to exceed capacity for a little bit, and then you're going to ramp back down to start your next training cycle. That non-linear progress is what will help you ensure that you are always able to make progress. But the main point here is over time, from one starting point to the next, or from one end point to the next, we are, generally speaking, trending upward. When you do set up a new training cycle, we're probably going to have you go for anywhere between 3 at max, maybe 6 or 7 training blocks on this program before you reset for a new cycle. Kind of just depends how much work you get up to and where your current work capacity is. Aside from that, at the start of a new training cycle, that's probably the most appropriate time for you to choose new exercises or incorporate new equipment if you have it. So that's when I would do it. But again, if we're stuck at home, probably don't have a ton of different equipment to play with, so your exercises might stay very much the same. With any luck, quarantine won't last too much longer for most of us. The gyms will start to reopen in the next maybe month to 3 months, who knows really. But in the meantime, the best we can do is make the most of our situation, continue to train as effectively as we know how, and having a program, having a structure will really help you do that. Might take us a while to, shake the rust off, but we'll come back stronger. And for now, that's all I've got. If you have any other questions, video ideas for future videos, drop me a comment down below if you want. And I guess I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Peace.